in the lobby, you may have noticed there are a few balloons. There's some renders kind of up in the middle of the lobby, and there's a table, and the table has books that look like these. These books have like 50 or 60 pages of all kinds of renders of what the new spaces will look like. The floor plans are on here, way more renders than are on your little handout that you have there, some of which you probably haven't seen. If you love to get into like architectural stuff and you love to look at elevations and kind of the more, nerdy side of it, then those are in there as well. So those are on the tables for anyone who wants to look at them. A couple of the guys from our building committee will be at the tables as well to answer any questions you may have. We'll leave those up as long as there's an appetite for that. I would imagine that probably 2 or 3 weeks from now, everyone's kind of seen what they wanted to see and asked whatever questions they wanted. But we'll leave those up for a couple weeks. But especially if you are like newer and you're like, I haven't seen any of these renders. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I mean, I know you're doing stuff, but loop me in. This may be really helpful and probably even inspiring in many ways. If you want to go look through those, I promise you this. The guys at the table, they're not like that booth in the middle of the mall where they're going to be like, hey, who's your cell phone provider? And like try to sell you something. That's not what they're there for. They're not selling you anything. They're just there to answer questions if you have them. So don't be scared of them. They're just fine, I promise. So if you want to see more pictures, don't take them home because these are rather on the pricey side, and we didn't feel like it was a good investment for us to like print 600 or 700 of these. So there's 10 or 12 of them out there, and you can take them and peruse through them and put them back, and someone else can look at it later. So they're all there, and there's a ton there. Let me work through this. I'm going to start on this side that has our projects. I just want to review where we've been and what we've accomplished and just how awesome that's been before we look at what's up next and kind of the financial side of things. There's a little note from me that's from my heart, and I hope that you'll take time to read that. It's not long, but they're exciting days for us, and I hope that you'll read that. Let's review where we've been, what's going on right now, and then what's next up over the next 6 or 8 months. So we've completed a lot. We did upgrade all of the upgrades we had laid out for our live stream, both in our cameras and our infrastructure. We will always be updating that and tweaking certain things, but there was a big chunk of some items that we really wanted to get done, and getting some fiber optic run up here and getting another camera, and we completed all of that we had laid out a couple years ago. We retired all of our debt, and that's amazing and awesome. When I guess October will be 8 years for me. And I remember starting and having those conversations of, well, how much debt do we have and those sorts of things. And that was $3.3 million at the time. When we began to have these conversations a couple years ago about our capital campaign, our debt was 1.65. And all that's gone. Last September, a year ago now, we paid that off, and we've been debt-free now for a year as a ministry and just been saving extra money. So that's awesome. We've been able to give an extra $150,000 to missionaries and to projects. That's on top of the $300,000 or so we give annually. There's been an extra $150,000 that we've given away. We were able to refresh this area right here. We knew this wasn't our forever home and that we didn't want to pour oodles of money into this space, but we did want to give it just a little bit of a facelift and some paint, and we extended our stage a little bit. To be able to help with until we get into that building. I'm so glad that we did. I really am. Because even if you look on live stream or things, like they look so much different in a good way. And that's been good for us. We just completed the remodel for the classrooms for the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. I mentioned to you last Sunday, we got our occupancy permit for that about 10 days ago now. We just kicked off our school classrooms. Our kindergartners are in those. And some offices are back in there. So that just got done. Feel free to go peek around and look through there. We have probably 1% left to do. There's a little bit of a baseboard, and I think one wall still needs a second or third coat of paint. And so there's a few little things left, but it's done, and we got our occupancy permit for that. We've completed all of our civil engineering. We've completed all of our architectural design. We've received, not only submitted last October, it took 10 months to get, but we received our site permit and environmental permits. Those are done, and that's what's allowing us to move all the dirt right now. And we've received bids for all the construction, and that's huge, because to have an estimate from an architect that is a cost per square foot is different than a detailed estimate, but even a detailed estimate is different than a bid. So that's a huge moment for us, and we're going to talk more about that here in just a minute. So we've done all of that. Right now what's in progress is the site work is happening. That's going to be a full 2 to 3 months. We're a couple weeks into that, but you have 2 to 3 months of site work in front of us, and you can start to see, not just with your mind's eye, but with your eye, actually what's happening. You can start to see like, oh, I see where they're digging that out, and the parking lot's going to go there. So all of that extra parking and the egress road for our school families to be able to have a better flow of traffic for our school day, even the infiltration trench that handles our water runoff down over the hill there, that it will all be done here before Thanksgiving, Lord willing. And we will actually have, for a season of time, like surplus parking. Because once we start on the building, that's going to eat up some of our parking. The net gain when it's all said and done is going to be about 75 spaces that we will gain, but we'll even have more than that for a brief little window of about 6 months or so. So all that site work is happening. Our building permit has been submitted. That shouldn't take anywhere close to as long as the site permit. That's normally a much shorter process, and the building permit is in good shape right now. And then we are reviewing kind of the engineering of our pre-engineered metal building, of the steel package. That's been going on now for months, and that's getting close to manufacture and being shipped to us. So that's happening in the background. So what's upcoming is here, after we turn the calendar into 2025, which we're going to blink our eyes and we're going to be there, that steel package is going to be delivered to us and set down, really right outside of our building here. That those footers are going to be dug out, and that foundation is going to be laid once the weather breaks in the spring, roughly March. We have everything lined up for that, other than the building permit needs to come in by then. But like I said, we don't feel like that's going to be an issue at all. Everything's lined out for that foundation to go, and those footers to be there, and then that steel to be erected and start to come up out of the ground and tie into our lobby. If you're newer and you're like, what? I don't understand. Where's that? I think that the floor plans and that big book that's out on the table will help you maybe visualize that in your mind's eye. So that'll happen in the erection of the steel building. The erection will probably be more May by the time that the footers and the foundation, all that work gets going. But that's going to be in short order. And of course, once that gets done, then you're going to put a roof on it and the siding on it, and you're going to keep rolling. But that's kind of in the next little block to help you envision from now till about May. Those are big, huge, monumental moments for us, but those are upcoming. Let me talk about the bids that we got. If you remember, we laid all this out in early of 2022, and we got our estimates in late 2021. So we're almost 3 years since we've received our estimates. And as we all know, this has been, at least in my lifetime, it's been an unprecedented season of inflation. There may be some of you that are older than me that maybe you could remember a season or two like this. But for me, I've never experienced anything like this, and it's just, you feel it at the gas pump, at the grocery store, and everywhere you go, you feel it. We have worked our tails off to do our best to combat that and to keep cost as low as possible. And frankly, I am extremely proud of our team. I play a part in that, but honestly, probably a small part in that. And our team has done amazing work. So I wanted to give you what we said, here's what we think this is going to cost. This was late 2021 estimates versus today. And you're going to see that they're a lot closer than most people would think that they'd be in light of inflation. So our missions giving is the same. We've given 150 out of 200 away, but we're going to give the other 50, and we're going to give that away. And we're still blessing missionaries, and we'll tell you more about that in October with our missions month. So we're still doing that. Our live stream was almost exactly budget. We spent 51 instead of 50, but it was right on par with what we thought. Our debt, we actually were able to bank about $400,000. When we had laid out our debt and what we wanted to retire, we just gave you guys what we owed. We owed 1.65. Now, we kept paying our mortgage though. We weren't like, so we're going to stop paying the mortgage and the capital campaign will fund it. We kept paying our mortgage. So you fast forward 18 months later, when we actually went to pay it off, it was only 1.2. So that actually saved us a chunk of change that we didn't really consider per se, and is able to be kind of funneled over to hard construction costs, which is nice because we need it right now. Our remodels, there's still a few invoices left to come in, but it looks like those are going to be spot on. This is where we as a team started to feel inflation for the first time. Back, I guess, almost 18 months or so ago, we got bids for to redo kind of a stage refresh here, and then to remodel those classrooms that we just got our occupancy permit for. And those bids then, 18 months ago, came in at $560. And we worked the bids and negotiated them. I mean, that was like as low as they were going to be. And we just, as a team, talked and said, like, we're not okay with that. We're just not okay with spending that much extra right now. Like, we need the funds for other things. So we made the decision to kind of manhandle the stage refresh ourselves. And some of you all built these, homemade, and we painted ourselves, and we just did it all ourselves for a lot less money than, someone else doing it for us. Same thing with that remodel. We have GC'd it ourselves, we have demoed it ourselves, we have painted it ourselves. We saved every door frame that we could from somewhere else. I mean, we have been as creative as possible, and we've worked our tails off to be sure that we were still in budget with that. Now we're at the end of it, and praise the Lord, we have been. But I think that in a small way is a window into what we're trying to do in a big way with all these projects. We want to pinch every penny we can and be as good of a steward as we can, which we have been for a long time. I mean, in my years here, we've done everything with cash. We've worked hard to get rid of our debt, and we try to pinch really every penny we can. When you get to the hard construction costs, those are up, and there's no way around that. But these are our bids. So these have been sent from the architectural plans through RGC to all of the subs and to all of the disciplines. We have gotten multiple bids back on all of them. We have not negotiated those bids down. We are hopeful that we'll be able to negotiate another 5% or maybe even 10% down on those, but we also know that's the bid today. You may fast forward 12 months and that may go up 5 or 10%. So we're thinking that number is going to be roughly the same. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you for sure. Will the economy take a turn and inflation go down and it be like, this is the perfect moment to do this? Maybe. Will it keep going as it has been and snowballing and be like, oh my word, the costs are, man, just a little while ago they were so much better. I don't know. Here's what I do know. These are firm numbers and bids that we got that aren't like make-believe estimates. So, and we're just giving you with as much clarity as we possibly can. Here's where we're at. These just came in recently, so this is why we're sharing them with you now. So that number is higher for sure. A part of that, and I want to be very clear, if you would I want to set your expectations properly, and I hope that we can all wrap our head around this. The bid at roughly $9 million is to do all of the site work and the parking and the excavation done. Of course, the auditorium done. The back of the house, there's some rooms and baptistries and things kind of off of the auditorium done. The lobby remodel done. And then there's a two-story building. Originally, we had talked about a one-story building right adjacent to the auditorium. And really based on your all's feedback, the more that we looked at it and thought about it, the more it made sense long-term to actually build that two-story. It will save us money in the long run. But that two-story building at that price would be a warm shell. So that will be foundation, the steel, first and second floor, the roof, the siding, the HVAC will be installed and good to go. All the plumbing and electrical will be roughed in. The fire suppression system will be run and laid out. But the non-load bearing walls and like drywalling those and painting those and like putting your carpet or your LVT down, those finishes would not be done at that price. That two-story building is a warm shell. We may get to that moment and be like, hey, the money works out just fine, we're gonna finish it, or we may leave it as a warm shell. Similar perhaps to when you built your house. I don't know if you ever built a house or if you did, but I know when we moved into our house, it was like, listen, I need the kitchen done. The basement, let's get the plumbing roughed in and let's get it set up, but I don't need the basement done. I can finish that a little bit later if I need to. So that's what that price point looks like for us. And then on top of that, you have some equipment and furniture that's going to be some infill that we're going to need. So that ends up being 12 instead of 11 when it's all said and done. And you compare and contrast that with our income. So we have had from our capital campaign that we ran, and I'll say a word about that in a minute if you weren't here for that. And you're like, what do you mean capital campaign? We had $4.5 million in pledges. 3.3 of that has already come in. And I want to stop and just say a huge thank you. Like, you all have showed up, you all have prayed, you all have sacrificed. To have millions of dollars come in above and beyond our general fund and our missions and all the things that do ministry on a day-to-day, right? There's the general fund that's like ministry today. Then there's building fund that's like ministry in the future. For that to happen is nothing short, I think, of miraculous, and I think you are to be commended like you wouldn't believe for showing up and doing that. On top of what you've given, we have been setting aside our mortgage payment. We will continue to set aside our mortgage payment. That looks like how many months will we actually be able to do it before we need that again? I don't know for sure, but it looks like 24 months is a very safe number for us. We've already done 12 of those. So that gives us another almost $700,000 and puts you at about $5.2 million in cash to work with for all these projects. So that leaves you, if you're like, well, I'm not a mathematician, but I can do math on that. There's a little less than a $7 million gap there, you know? How do you bridge that gap? Well, there's multiple ways that you could. One way would be to slow down and just keep saving our mortgage until you have the funds to do it. Now, if you start to project out the number, I'm like, well, if we just save our mortgage, that's a lot of money. That's going to be like 10 years, before we're ready to do it. We're probably not wanting to wait that long, but you're talking about all the options on the table. We could secure a loan. I don't really want to go back to debt. I know no one wants to. I still continue to pray. My prayer all along has been, continues to be, Lord, would you allow us to do this debt-free? I don't know how he would do that, but he figured out how to part a Red Sea. He can do stuff. So I don't know, but that continues to be my prayer. But I also know this. We could take out a loan for $5 million and we wouldn't feel it from a budget perspective. Servicing that amount of debt on like a 20-year loan is not something that we would even feel. We already have that carved out. $6 million is something that we would feel, but it's not at all like going to stretch us in some sort of crazy way. You start to push beyond that to $7 million, and it starts to get, at least at the current moment, to where like, I just don't know that we're comfortable with that. But that's an option. I mean, you could get a loan for $6 million. You could also wait for lower interest rates. It's a dangerous game to play when you're just playing the monthly payment game of how much can I get, loaned for the same monthly payment. But that is a factor at times of like, hey, the interest rates went down so that you can actually loan 6.3 instead of 6, and it's the same payment. Those sorts of things, could happen. Our church could continue to grow, and we believe that it will. We're not really factoring those in projections, but it stands to reason we're going to fast forward the tape 12 months, and there's going to be more people, and there will likely be more generosity. Our operating budget grew by about $300,000 this year, and that'll probably happen again, so that's certainly a solution. Or there's just additional generosity. And I want to take a minute and talk about that specifically, because realistically, we're going to have a number of these work together, okay? So here's how I would put it. When you take the cost of the projects and our finances, those worlds have not completely merged yet. They've probably merged about 90%, maybe even 95%. They've merged enough where we feel very confident that we can speak clearly and say, like, we're going to get this done, and we can order the steel package and have it delivered here and start putting it up. Like, we do feel that. But they haven't merged 100%. And it probably will take us 6 or 8 months to figure out how exactly do they merge 100%. Do the interest rates go down some, and the church grows some, and there's some additional generosity, and all these things work together, and like, okay, that makes complete sense. I don't know exactly, but we will figure that out as we go. But one of those is generosity. We are going to take up an offering at the end of the month, September the 29th, specifically for these projects. I want to be abundantly clear. So if you are part of the church family that was here 2.5 years ago, and you went through our capital campaign process, and for those of you that weren't here, you need to understand that was an extensive process. There were a lot of meetings and a lot of focus groups and a lot of vision casting and a lot of one-on-one meetings and a lot of people sitting around you that thought and prayed and have dug deep for literally years now. And if you're newer, I don't want that to be lost on you. I want you to understand that you're sitting amongst people who said, me and my family, we're going to give thousands. And then there's someone else next to you that said, me and my family, we're going to give tens of thousands. And you may be sitting next to somebody that said, me and my family, we're going to give hundreds of thousands. Like, there's been a ton of sacrificial generosity to get us to this monumental moment. And if that's you, I am not asking you to double down and to do another pledge and to give again. I'm not doing that. That would be bad business, I feel. So if you've already done that and you're like working on a pledge, like me and my wife, we committed to give X over 3 years, and we're still working on it. We're whittling away at it. If you give on that Sunday, it's going towards that pledge. It's not on top of it. Okay, I want to be super duper clear on that. But I know that there's like 3 other buckets of people that are at our church. Like there's a big chunk of you that over the last couple of years have come and you're like, I wasn't a part of this. I don't know. I'm new, or I'm a year new, or I'm 2 years new. No one's ever asked me to give. And you're 100% right. No one's asked you to give. No one's expected you to give. But we are asking you to give now, if I could put it that way, just bluntly. Now would be a great time to consider it. This is part of why we want you to see those pictures and to kind of catch the vision that people caught years ago. Because there's a big chunk of you that are like, that maybe would say, hey, thank you to those of you around me that have been in the boat rowing. I'm going to jump in the boat and pick up an oar and I'm going to row with you. And I would encourage that. I really would. Or perhaps you were here, but it was like, listen, I don't do pledges. Or I think you're crazy. I don't know you're going to be able to do that. I'll give when the time is right. I'm not saying, I'm not the Holy Spirit in your life. I'm just suggesting that maybe the time would be right now. Maybe. So now would be, I think, a good time for us to at least stop, think, pray, consider. And the reason for that is we're going to have to start to have a conversation with lending institutions over the next couple months here of a construction line of credit that would potentially convert over to a loan when it's done. And we would like to have as much information and generosity as possible before that moment. I don't know what will happen. Maybe September 29th we get here and the generosity is off the charts and it's like, okay, we don't have to have those conversations yet with banks or whatever. We have enough cash runway to keep running because we've had enough cash runway to do it all in cash. But that cash runway, when you order $1 million steel package and then you start to mobilize people and start to erect it, like that runway is going to run out. We need to be prepared for that. And we would like to have a significant moment of generosity before we get there. Does that make sense? We feel that the timing is really appropriate and fitting in light of the projects and how they're unfolding and the timelines that we have in front of us. So we'll say more about it over the next few weeks. I'm not going to say a peep about it on Friend Day. Friend Day is not for that. We want people to come, have fun, hear the gospel. So I won't say anything about the offering then, but for a couple weeks we will. We'll leave that station out in the lobby for a few weeks as long as you need it to be able to look and to be able to ask questions. So that's where the financial picture, that's the best that we have, that's as clear as we have. And we want us all to be on the same page of where we're at. These are fun, these are exciting. In some ways they're a little bit intimidating, but they are beautiful moments for us as a church family. Here are my takeaways for you. If I communicated all this, I want to be just really clear, like here's what I hope you would walk away with. Takeaway number 1, is we believe that these projects are a worthy investment and a wise investment for our future as a ministry. Like, I couldn't state this strongly enough. What we're doing in these moments is going to set the stage for the next 20 years of ministry. These are moments that are not going to happen every year or every 10 years or even every 20 years, but they are happening right now, and they're such a catalyst for what's going to come in the future for us, and they're deeply important for us. And I don't feel bad as a pastor to just encourage and bluntly say, these are important and monumental. Get behind them as much as possible, both in prayer support and in financial support. I hope you leave today inspired to open up your heart to the vision, but also to open up your wallet, your checkbooks, to the vision as well. So we believe that these are worthy investments. We're going to get them done. It may take some creativity. We may have to self-perform some stuff, and that's okay if we do. It may take some patience, and it may be you know what? We're going to have to delay that 3 months so that we can save 3 more months of mortgage, and that gives us an extra $100,000. It may take some patience. It may take some extra generosity, but at the end of the day, we feel very confident. The Lord's led us to this moment. We're here on the edge at the Jordan, and we're moving forward, faith forward. I would also say that we will not put ourselves in a bad financial position. Here's what I love about our team of deacons and pastors. The financial perspectives of all of the 15 of us in that room are very different. Some are go for it, and some are be as patient as possible and as wise as possible. And it's this mixture. But there's been such unity and such continuity on these projects are worthy investments for our future. We need to get them done, and we're not going to put ourselves in a bad financial position. There's been just unbelievable unity on all of that, and we feel confident in that. So you have my word. Nobody needs to live in super financial stress mode as a church, and then the pastor feels the pressure to preach a sermon on money every 3 months because it's tight, and you don't want to live in that world, and I don't want to live in that world, and we're not going to live in that world. You have my word on that. The last thing I would say is I just want you to begin to pray about the part that maybe God wants you to play on the 29th. Whether you already have a commitment that you're trying to work on or a pledge, and you're working to fulfill that, great. Or maybe you don't, and you're just kind of adding some extra to the pot for us. We really feel like that would be a timely thing for all of us to do, is just to stop and to pray and say, Lord, thank you for how far we've come. It's been an amazing ride so far, and we're looking forward to the future. So does that make sense? I'm doing my best to give you a ton of information in a clear way as quickly as I can while not being rushed, which is deeply difficult for me. I want to talk so fast right now. You would not believe it. But I'm doing my best. But if something isn't clear, I promise you questions are welcome. Please go by that table, email us, let us know. We want to be as open and transparent as possible and get everybody on the same page. So we only do big updates like this about once a month. Thank you for bearing with us on that. And we won't do another one here for another 6 months or so you can wait till then. But I'm looking forward to seeing what God does through that offering at the end of the month, and you pray about it until then.